Chapter 1: The Birth of the Pyramid Dream. In the age when the Nile was young and the sands had not yet swallowed the secrets of eternity, there arose a pharaoh, unlike any who had ruled before. He was said to be the living son of Ra, the sun god, a divine flame walking upon the earth in mortal form. His reign was one of order, harvest, and glory, but also of a dream that reached beyond the mortal world into the endless sky. It was during the festival of the sun, when the first rays of dawn struck the sacred obelisks of Helios, that the pharaoh beheld a vision. The light blazed across the horizon like a stairway of fire, rising upward into the heavens. In that instant, he fell into a trance, and Ra himself appeared before him. "Son of my light," said Ra, his voice like the thunder of the desert storm and the whisper of the wind over the Nile. "The time will come when your mortal body must return to the sands. Yet your soul shall not wither like dust. You shall ascend to me, but only if you build a house of eternity, a ladder of stone that captures the light of the sun and binds the earth to the heavens." The pharaoh awoke trembling, yet filled with divine purpose. That very night, he summoned the high priests of Ra, the scribes of Thoth, and the architects of Ptah, master of craftsmen. "The gods have spoken," the pharaoh declared. "I shall not die like a man of clay. I shall rise as a star among the eternal constellations. Build for me a monument that defies time itself, a mountain of stone that shall pierce the heavens. Build for me a pyramid." The priests fell to their knees, chanting prayers of blessing, while the architects trembled at the enormity of the command. No mortal had ever attempted such a feat, yet the pharaoh's words carried the weight of divine decree, and none dared defy him. In the days that followed, the land of Egypt stirred with divine fervor. Messengers were sent across the two lands, summoning thousands of workers, artisans, and slaves. Stones from distant quarries were prepared, dragged by barges along the Nile, their surfaces shimmering like captured fragments of the sun. But it was not mere stone that mattered, it was the design, the sacred geometry whispered by the gods themselves. At the temple of Heliopolis, beneath the watchful eyes of the priests, the high scribe consulted the ancient scrolls of Thoth. He revealed the secret of the Benbon, the primordial mound that had first risen from the waters of chaos at the dawn of creation. The pyramid, the high scribe proclaimed, is the earthly reflection of the Benbon, the first mountain. From it, to raise such a form is to bind Pharaoh's spirit to the beginning of time itself. And so, the design of the Great Pyramid was traced upon the sands. Its base was squared with the four corners of the world, its sides slanted toward the eternal heavens. Its apex pointed directly to the north, where the stars of Orion, the seat of Osiris, Lord of the afterlife, shone with ghostly fire. As work began, whispers spread among the people. Some believed the pharaoh had challenged the gods themselves, daring to reach the stars by mortal hands. Others proclaimed that Egypt was blessed, for the pyramid would become the very stairway of heaven. The labor was brutal, endless, and sacred. By day, under the blazing sun, men pulled stones so massive they seemed immovable. By night, priests chanted hymns to Ra and Thoth, blessing each stone before it was laid. Blood was spilled upon the sand as sacrifices to appease Sekhmet, the lioness goddess of wrath, so that plague and famine would not strike the workers. Legends say that the pharaoh himself would walk among the workers, radiant in golden crown and white linen robes, his presence filling them with strength beyond their limits. "Each stone you raise," he told them, "is a step upon my path to the gods. In raising me, you too shall rise. For in eternity, all Egypt shall ascend with me." Yet not all were filled with reverence. Deep within the shadows of the desert, a circle of jealous nobles whispered in secret, "Why should Pharaoh alone claim the stars? Why should we break our backs to raise his tomb, while we are left to rot in the sands? This monument is not for Egypt, it is for his pride." But they knew better than to speak such treason aloud, for rumors already spread that the pyramid would not only be a tomb, but also a prison of divine fire. It was said that once completed, the pyramid would hold within it spells of such power that even the gods would descend to guard it. Seasons passed, and the pyramid began to rise from the sands like a mountain born of human will. From the distant horizon, it gleamed like gold under the sun. Travelers from foreign lands beheld it and fell to their knees, declaring it a work not of men, but of gods. One night, as the pharaoh stood upon the half-built structure, he gazed at the stars of Orion. The desert wind howled, carrying whispers of eternity. Then, from the shadows, the jackal-headed Anubis appeared. Pharaoh spoke, "The guardian of the dead, your path is being prepared. But know this, the pyramid is not merely a stairway, it is a gate, and gates must be guarded. Beyond it lies the Duat, the realm of shadows. You will not walk it untested. Even now, the forces of chaos stir against you. The serpent Apep hungers for your light." The pharaoh's eyes blazed with fire. "Then let the pyramid stand as my shield and my weapon. Let it defy the darkness. I shall rise to the heavens, even if I must crush the chaos beneath my feet." Anubis bowed, his eyes gleaming. "So it shall be, O Pharaoh. So it shall be." And thus began the legend of the pyramid dream. A divine command, a monument of eternity, and a promise that even death itself could not end the reign of Pharaoh. But in the sands beyond, shadows stirred and whispers of rebellion grew louder. For where there is a stairway to heaven, there will always be those who seek to break it. Chapter 2. The Architects of Eternity. The Pharaoh's vision had been spoken, and now the burden of creation fell upon the wisest of Egypt's chosen. They were men touched by the gods' priests who read the stars, scribes who conversed with spirits, and architects whose hands had shaped the very temples of eternity. Yet none had ever dared dream of raising a mountain from the sands. At the heart of this circle stood Imhotep, the grand architect of Petta, whose name would echo through ages. His eyes were sharp as a hawk's, his hands steady as the Nile in flood, and his voice carried the weight of unshakable certainty. Some said he was half divine, gifted by Petta himself with the power to bind stone to heaven. Before Pharaoh, Imhotep bowed low, then lifted his staff carved with sacred symbols. "Great Pharaoh, living son of Ra," he said, "the pyramid is no mere tomb. It is a cosmic device, a mirror of the heavens, a key to the gates of Duat. To build it is to command the very laws of creation. But we must walk with care, for a single stone misplaced, a single angle misaligned, may unleash chaos instead of eternity." The pharaoh nodded, his gaze burning with the certainty of destiny. "Then let there be no error. You shall lead, Imhotep. The gods have chosen you as my hand upon the earth." That night, under a sky strewn with stars, the high priests of Ra-Thoth, and Osiris gathered with Imhotep upon the desert plain where the foundation would be laid. They carried scrolls inscribed with hymns of creation, and in the sand they drew sacred lines according to the constellations. The high priest of Thoth, voice trembling as though the god himself spoke through him, declared, "The base shall rest upon the cardinal points, that it may bind earth to the four winds. The height shall be measured to mirror the rays of Ra, so that the sun's light shall forever crown the apex. And within its hidden chambers shall lie the spells of the Book of the Dead, guiding Pharaoh through the 12 gates of night." Imhotep struck his staff into the ground, and where it touched, the sand glowed faintly as though the earth itself acknowledged the divine command. "So it begins," he whispered. The work of design was not written on papyrus alone, it was carved into the very stars. Night after night, the priests climbed the temple towers to study Orion, Sirius, and the northern constellations. They whispered of the Duat, the underworld, and how the stars themselves formed a map of Pharaoh's journey beyond death. Imhotep translated their visions into numbers, lines, and angles. His calculations were so precise that men said he conversed not with humans, but with the gods of measurement. Every chamber, every shaft, every hidden corridor was planned as though it had already existed since the dawn of creation, awaiting only mortal hands to reveal it. But as the plans unfolded, strange signs began to appear. One night, as the scribes inked the blueprints with sacred dyes, a sudden wind swept through the temple, extinguishing every lamp. In the darkness, the voice of a serpent hissed, "You dare build a stairway to the heavens. You dare defy Apep, the eternal darkness. Beware, for each stone you raise brings you closer to doom." The priests shuddered, yet Imhotep's voice cut through the shadows. "The serpent may coil, but it shall not strike. For each stone is blessed by Ra, and each line is guarded by Thoth. The pyramid will not be undone." At his words, the lamps flared back to life, and the scribes continued their work with renewed determination. In the weeks that followed, the first foundations were dug deep into the desert bedrock. It was said that beneath the lowest stone, the priests buried sacred talismans, amulets of protection, jars of Nile water, and figurines of the gods, so that the pyramid's heart would be alive with divine essence. As the workers toiled, Imhotep oversaw every detail. He taught them how to cut the stone with copper chisels, how to drag them with sledges across the sand, how to align each block with the stars above. His commands were sharp, yet his presence was like a shield, and the workers found themselves filled with unearthly strength. "The stones are not mere matter," he told them. "They are the bones of the earth. Treat them with reverence, for each one is a prayer carved into time." But whispers of unease grew louder. Some among the nobles, watching the vast labor drain Egypt's strength, muttered in secret, "Imhotep builds not for Pharaoh, but for himself. With such power, who is to say he does not seek to usurp the throne? Perhaps he seeks to imprison Pharaoh's soul within the stone, to rule Egypt in his name even after death." The words spread like a shadow, poisoning ears with suspicion. Yet Pharaoh trusted Imhotep as he trusted no other, declaring, "He who builds my stairway shall share in my eternity." As the chapter of design drew to its end, a final ritual was held. At dawn, beneath a blood-red sunrise, the priests carried the sacred Benbon stone, the capstone, blessed by Ra himself, to the construction site. It was small compared to the mountain of stone that would rise, but it held within it the divine spark of creation. Imhotep lifted it high and cried, "So the heavens shall touch the earth, and so Pharaoh shall rise to the stars." The workers roared their assent, and with that, the true labor of eternity began. Yet unseen in the desert sands, the serpent Apep coiled in the underworld, waiting for the moment to strike. For a pyramid was not only a stairway for Pharaoh's soul, it was also a weapon against chaos, and chaos would not remain idle. Chapter 3: The Curse of the Serpent. The first stones had been laid, and already the desert trembled with the echo of hammers and chants. Yet beneath the rising foundation, unseen by mortal eyes, the ancient serpent Apep stirred within the shadows of Duat. The coils of chaos uncurled, slithering through cracks between worlds. For the pyramid was not a monument to death, it was a defiance of darkness itself. Whispers in the night, one moonless night, when the Nile ran black beneath the stars, the workers slept in their camps. Fires flickered low, and the desert winds carried a strange hiss, as though the sands themselves whispered. A mason awoke, clutching his chest, for he had dreamed of a colossal serpent swallowing the sun. The dream spread like a plague among the workers. Each awoke with terror, claiming the same vision. Coils of darkness, scales of night, eyes like burning pits. At dawn, they refused to lift another stone. "It is cursed," they cried. "The serpent Apep has laid claim to the pyramid. To build further is to invite ruin." Fear spread, stronger than the desert sun, and even the strongest men faltered. The priest's warning, Imhotep gathered the high priests of Ra, Thoth, and Osiris within a hastily raised shrine near the site. The incense smoke rose in spirals, yet the flames trembled as if afraid. The high priest of Ra spoke with a voice heavy as the Nile. "Apep, the eternal enemy of the sun, has awakened. He coils in fury, for this pyramid is no mere tomb, it is a beacon of light, a weapon against his endless night. Pharaoh has challenged him, and Apep will not rest until this vision is drowned in shadow." The high priest of Osiris lifted his staff, the crook shining with emerald light. "If the curse is not broken, Pharaoh's soul will wander lost in Duat. Even Osiris cannot guide him through the gates if Apep has already swallowed his path." Pharaoh's oath. When these words reached Pharaoh, he did not tremble. Draped in gold, his eyes burning with divine fire, he stood before his people. "Hear me, children of Kemet. Have we not faced famine and flood? Have we not triumphed against foreign kings and desert raiders? Shall we now cower before a dream?" His voice rose like thunder. "The serpent is but shadow, and we are the sons and daughters of Ra. As the sun pierces darkness each dawn, so too shall we complete this pyramid. Let Apep curse us if he dares. Egypt does not bow to chaos." The people roared, their fear tempered into resolve by the fire of their pharaoh. Yet in the silence that followed, Imhotep alone frowned, for he knew words were not enough. The curse must be broken by deed, not by speech. The night of the eclipse, days passed, and the work resumed. But then the sky betrayed them. One afternoon, as workers strained beneath sledges, the sun began to dim. Shadows stretched unnaturally long, and a hush fell over the desert. Then the light died altogether, and the world was swallowed in black. An eclipse. Gasps and cries rose from every throat. In the sky, a vast shadow seemed to take form, the coils of a serpent devouring the sun. Women wept, Men fell to their knees, and even the priests trembled. Only Pharaoh stood tall, though his face was pale. Apep shows his fangs, he declared, but he shall choke on his own venom. Yet in the camps that night, sickness spread. Cattle died without cause. Nile water turned bitter, and scorpions swarmed from the sands. It seemed as though Egypt itself groaned beneath the serpent's curse. Imhotep's descent, knowing that mortal hands could not undo this shadow, Imhotep sought wisdom from the gods. On the third night of the eclipse, he entered the temple of Thoth, god of wisdom and magic. There, surrounded by scrolls and moonlight, he knelt. Lord of the hidden word, keeper of balance, he prayed, grant me the power to uncoil the serpent's curse. For without your light, this pyramid shall fall into ruin. The ibisetted god appeared in vision, his eyes glowing silver. His voice was calm, yet sharp as the chisel that shapes stone. Imhotep, child of Ptah, hear me. Apep's curse cannot be shattered by prayer alone. To break it, you must descend into Duat itself and face the serpent where he coils. Take with you the spells of the Book of the Dead and carry the heart of Pharaoh's courage. Only then shall the curse be broken. Imhotep bowed low, his fate sealed. The omen of the sandstorm. As Imhotep emerged from the temple, the desert stirred. Winds howled, sand rose in walls that blotted out the stars. And within the storm, a great hiss echoed. You dare defy me, mortal. I shall strike your Pharaoh down, and with him all of Egypt. This pyramid will be your tomb. The storm battered tents and toppled sledges, but Imhotep stood firm, raising his staff against the gale. His eyes burned with resolve. Strike, serpent. Egypt has weathered storms greater than you. We are children of the Nile, and our stones shall outlast even chaos itself. And so the storm passed, though the threat lingered in the air like venom. The vow of the architects, when dawn came, Imhotep summoned the priests, the scribes, and the master builders. Before them, he unfurled scrolls, inked with sacred spells, each word glowing faintly. Pharaoh has vowed to defy Apep, but words are not enough. We, the builders of eternity, must swear our blood and souls to this cause. This pyramid is no longer merely a tomb, it is a fortress of light, a weapon against chaos. If Apep would curse us, then we shall answer with fire and stone. One by one, the men placed their hands upon the scroll, swearing their oaths. The priests raised their staffs, the workers lifted their chisels, and all cried as one. By Ra, by Osiris, by the Nile that gives us life, we shall not bow to the serpent. Thus the chapter closed. The curse had been spoken, and Egypt had answered. Yet the battle was not over. For Imhotep knew that to truly defeat Apep, he must walk the shadowed paths of Duat itself, and that journey would demand more than oaths. It would demand a soul of unshakable courage. Chapter 4: The Descent into Duat. The desert lay silent beneath the stars, yet Imhotep could not sleep. The hiss of the serpent haunted every shadow, and the whispers of workers still carried the weight of fear. He had sworn before Thoth himself to enter Duat, the hidden world of the dead. Now the hour had come, the ritual of opening the way. On the night of the half-moon, the priests of Osiris gathered within a circle of torches at the edge of the pyramid site. They chanted ancient hymns, their voices rising and falling like the tides of the Nile in the center. Imhotep stood clothed in linen white as bones. Around his neck hung an amulet of Ra, forged from gold that gleamed like sunlight. In his hand was a scroll, inked with spells from the Book of the Dead. The high priest of Osiris lifted his staff, and the torches flared high. Imhotep, son of Ptah, servant of Pharaoh, hear this. Once you walk the path of Duat, there is no turning back. You will face the gates, the guardians, and the serpent himself. Only with purity of heart shall you survive. Do you still choose this road? Without hesitation, Imhotep bowed for Egypt, for Pharaoh, for the light of Ra will walk into the shadow. The priests struck the ground with their staffs, and the earth trembled. A fissure opened at Imhotep's feet, exhaling cold air that smelled of tombs and dust. A stairway of black stone descended into darkness. The way to Duat had opened, crossing the threshold. With a final breath, Imhotep stepped into the chasm. Darkness swallowed him, and the sound of chanting faded behind. The stairway spiraled downward, endless, until torches ignited on their own, lining the walls with ghostly blue fire. Carvings appeared upon the stone scenes of the dead weighing their hearts, of gods seated in judgment, of serpents coiling around stars. Imhotep traced the glyphs with reverence. This is not only the land of the dead, he whispered. It is the library of eternity. At last, the stairs ended. Before him stretched a vast river of black water, its surface smooth as obsidian. Upon it floated a single boat carved of cedar, its prow shaped like the falcon of Horus. The ferryman of shadows from the mist rose a figure cloaked in gray. His skin was pale as ash, his eyes empty as hollow tombs. He held a long oar, and his voice echoed like the wind through catacombs. Who seeks passage across the river of night? Imhotep lifted the amulet of Ra. I am Imhotep, servant of Pharaoh. I carry the words of Thoth, the wisdom of life and death. I seek to face the serpent, Apep, and break his curse upon Egypt. The ferryman's gaze lingered. Few among the living dare to name the serpent here. Fewer still return. What payment do you offer? Imhotep drew forth a small jar sealed with wax, the preserved heart of a sacred ibis, offered in sacrifice to Thoth. Wisdom guides my path. May this offering carry me forward. The ferryman nodded and gestured. Imhotep stepped into the boat, and the oar dipped into the black water. The vessel moved without sound, gliding into mist. The river of souls, as they drifted, faces rose beneath the water pail, weeping, some calling his name, others cursing. Imhotep clutched the scroll tighter. These were souls unworthy of paradise, forever bound in shadow. One reached out, skeletal fingers breaking the surface. Imhotep, join us. Your pyramid will be your tomb. He turned away, reciting from the scroll. I am he who walks in light. I am he who crosses the river unbroken. Chaos shall not claim me. The hand sank, the voice faded, and the river carried him onward. The gate of the jackal. At last the mist parted, revealing a colossal gate of obsidian. It was carved in the likeness of a jackal's head, its fangs bared, its eyes glowing red. Before it stood a towering guardian, Anubis himself, god of embalming, lord of the threshold. The ferryman vanished into smoke, leaving Imhotep alone. Anubis stepped forward, jackal head gleaming in firelight. His voice was deep, each word like a drumbeat. Imhotep, mortal, who dares? Do it why? Do you tread the road of the dead while your heart still beats? Imhotep knelt. Great Anubis, I come not to steal immortality, but to save my Pharaoh. Apep coils around Egypt, cursing our works, threatening our souls. I seek to break his curse. Anubis raised his staff, weighing Imhotep with eyes sharper than blades. The road you seek is perilous. Only those whose hearts are lighter than the feather of Mat may walk it. If yours is heavy with pride or deceit, the devourer shall feast upon it. With a gesture, he summoned scales of gold. In one pan, he placed the feather of Mat, shining with pure light. In the other, he placed Imhotep's heart, drawn forth by magic. The scales trembled, swayed, then balanced. Anubis inclined his head. You speak true. Your heart is light, your purpose just. The gates of Duat open to you. But beware, the serpent waits, and he feeds on courage as much as fear. The jackal gate rumbled open, revealing a desert of stars and shadow beyond. Imhotep's resolve. Imhotep stepped through, the scroll of Thoth glowing faintly in his grasp. Ahead stretched the true duatendless plains of darkness, rivers of fire, mountains that glowed with the blood of stars. And somewhere within that realm, Apep stirred, waiting. He lifted his gaze to the endless night and whispered, "By Ra's light, by Osiris's throne, I will not falter. Egypt depends on me. Pharaoh depends on me. I will break this curse, or I will not return at all." And so began Imhotep's descent into the deepest shadows of Duat, where even gods tread with caution. Chapter 5. Trials of the Underworld. The gates of the jackal closed behind him with a sound like 1,000 tomb doors sealing shut. Before Imhotep stretched the vast and terrible landscape of Duata, realm of the dead. The air was heavy, filled with ash and whispers. Mountains of black stone glowed faintly, their peaks burning with crimson fire. Rivers of boiling sand shifted like serpents, and in the distance, colossal statues of forgotten gods loomed, their faces eroded by eternity. Imhotep tightened his grip on the scroll of Thoth. The ferryman was gone, the priests' voices were gone. Now he stood alone in a world where every shadow held a trial, every step a judgment. The desert of knives. The first path led into a plain where jagged stones jutted like teeth. As Imhotep walked, the ground shifted and the rocks began to rise, cutting at his sandals, his robes, his skin. They grew sharper, taller, until he realized they were not stone, but blades of obsidian, each whispering curses. A voice rose among them, cruel and mocking. Why build for Pharaoh when death swallows all? Your pyramid is dust. Your name will fade. Kneel, Imhotep, and accept oblivion. Pain lanced through his feet, but he raised the scroll, chanting, "I walk in truth. My steps carve the path of Pharaoh. No blade of shadow shall halt me." The obsidian knives shivered, then sank into the ground. The path cleared. His blood dripped onto the sand, but his spirit endured. The Hall of Mirrors. Beyond the desert lay a cavern of polished stone. Imhotep entered and found himself surrounded by endless reflections. Each mirror showed not only his face, but versions of himself, some as a king crowned in gold, others as a tyrant wielding whips, and still others as a corpse rotting in a coffin. From the reflections, voices spoke. You could be Pharaoh. Why serve another? You could be worshipped, not forgotten. Another voice, harsher. You will fail. Your bones will rot here. Egypt will fall, and it will be your fault. Imhotep shut his eyes, pressing the amulet of Ra to his chest. I seek no throne, no crown. I serve Pharaoh. I serve Egypt. I serve the balance of Mat. false visions cannot bind me. When he opened his eyes again, the mirrors shattered into dust. The cavern trembled, and a golden doorway appeared ahead. The river of fire, the next trial roared before him, a river of molten fire, its surface alive with flames that took the shapes of serpents. On the opposite shore stood a black obelisk inscribed with glowing hieroglyphs. He who crosses, crosses into truth. He who falters is ash. No bridge, no boat, only the inferno. Imhotep unrolled the scroll of Thoth, searching. His eyes found a passage. The tongue of Ra is fire, but he does not burn his faithful. Walk, and the flames shall part. Clutching the scroll, he stepped forward. Fire licked at his sandals. Smoke filled his lungs. But as he whispered the spell, the flames bent aside, forming a narrow path. Every step was agony, but the words of Thoth shielded him. When at last he reached the far shore, his robes were scorched, his skin blistered, but he still lived. The devourer of hearts. No sooner had he crossed than a monstrous shape emerged from the shadows, a beast with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the haunches of a hippopotamus. Its jaws snapped like thunder. It was Ammit, the devourer, who feasted on the hearts of the unworthy. Her eyes glowed as she spoke. You passed the scales of Anubis, but still I hunger. I taste pride in your veins, fear in your blood. Give me your heart, mortal, and I will spare you pain. Imhotep's body trembled, for her presence was crushing, her hunger eternal. But he pressed the amulet of Ra against his chest, his voice firm. My heart is not yours, devourer. It belongs to Pharaoh, to Egypt, to the gods who guard Mat. You shall not taste it. Ammit lunged, jaws wide, but the amulet blazed like the sun, and she shrieked, retreating into darkness. Imhotep fell to his knees, breath ragged, but his heart still beat within him. The voice of Apep as silence returned. The ground beneath him quaked. From the horizon rose a hiss, so vast it seemed to come from every direction. Imhotep, the voice slithered, deeper than thunder, colder than the void. You walk far for a mortal, but every step you take feeds me. Every act of courage strengthens my hunger. When you reach me, you will be mine. The shadow of a serpent coiled across the stars above, its eyes glowing like suns of poison. Imhotep's knees weakened, but he forced himself to rise. Lifting the scroll, he shouted into the night, I walk not for myself, but for Egypt. I will face you, serpent, and your shadow will break before Ra's light. The hiss faded, but the air remained thick with menace. The path continues, weary, bleeding, but unbroken. Imhotep pressed onward. Behind him lay the desert of knives, the mirrors of temptation, the river of fire, and the jaws of Ammit. Ahead stretched deeper trials, darker still. Yet he whispered to himself, each step brings me closer. Pharaoh's soul waits, Egypt's fate hangs. I cannot stop. And so, under the eternal night of Duat, Imhotep walked forward toward the final confrontation with Apep. Chapter 6. The Garden of Stars. Imhotep staggered forward, his body weary and scorched from the trials. Each breath was ash, each step heavy with pain. Yet, as he pressed onward, the air around him began to change. The oppressive darkness of Duat parted, replaced by a soft radiance. The ground beneath his feet smoothed into polished black stone that glimmered like obsidian, yet shimmered with constellations, as though the stars themselves had been trapped beneath the surface. Above him, the eternal night sky unfolded countless stars, brighter than any he had seen in the living world. They pulsed like beating hearts, their light pouring into the land below. Imhotep blinked, stunned. This was no desert, no cavern, no infernal trial. It was a garden of eternity. The arrival of the ancestors. As he stepped further, figures began to emerge among the stars. Tall, regal silhouettes walked the shimmering ground, cloaked in radiant light. Their crowns gleamed with lapis and gold. Their staffs shone like fire. He knew them at once. Pharaohs of ages past. Kings whose names had been carved into temple walls and sung in hymns for centuries. Men who had walked as gods among mortals. They turned toward him, their eyes burning with the light of the constellations. One stepped forward, his headdress tall, his scepter crowned with the ankh. His voice was like flowing water. Imhotep, child of Egypt, servant of Pharaoh, you have crossed the gates of trial. You stand now in the garden of stars, where the worthy may speak with those who came before. Imhotep fell to his knees, bowing low. Great pharaohs, guardians of Mat, I am not worthy to stand in your presence. I am but a builder, a servant, a man of dust. The first pharaoh raised his hand. You are more than dust. You carry the scroll of Thoth, the amulet of Ra, and the will to face Apep. That makes you the bridge between the living and the divine. The prophecy of the stars. Another pharaoh approached, his crown shaped like the double lands of Upper and Lower Egypt. His voice thundered like distant drums. Listen, Imhotep. The serpent coils tighter with each passing age. Apep is not merely a beast of night. He is chaos itself, the shadow that seeks to unmake the order of Mat. A third pharaoh, younger and cloaked in flame, spoke. You will face him, but not with strength alone. No, the Sapep cannot be slain by mortal hands, nor even by the mightiest of gods, save Ra. Yet Ra cannot descend into Duat unaided. That is your role, mortal. You are the key to opening the path. Imhotep's breath caught, his knees trembled. Then, all Egypt's fate rests upon me, a single man. The elder pharaohs all raised their voices in unison, echoing like thunder across the garden. Not a Manan instrument. Through you, Pharaoh's soul shall rise. Through Pharaoh, the light of Ra shall strike. You are the bearer of the flame, but you are not the flame itself. The gift of the pharaohs. The first pharaoh extended his staff toward Imhotep. From its tip, a stream of starlight poured into the amulet of Ra upon his chest. The symbol blazed, brighter than ever before, and warmth filled his weary body. Another pharaoh stepped forward, touching the scroll of Thoth. The papyrus shimmered, hieroglyphs rearranging, revealing new spells that Imhotep had never seen. Words of power burned into his mind, incantations to bind, shield, and call upon the strength of the heavens. Finally, the youngest pharaoh reached forward, placing his hand upon Imhotep's brow. Take with you our vision in the hours to come when despair crushes you. Remember this, Egypt is more than stone, more than kings, more than gods. Egypt is eternity. As long as one heart beats in its name, Apep cannot claim victory. Tears welled in Imhotep's eyes, not of sorrow, but of awe. I will not fail you, great ones. By Mat, by Pharaoh, by the light of Ra, I will see this through. The stars begin to fade. The pharaohs nodded as one, their bodies dissolving back into starlight. Their voices faded, yet one final whisper lingered in the air. Beware, Imhotep, for the closer you walk to light, the longer your shadow grows. Apep waits, and he is patient, The garden trembled, the constellations above flickered. One by one, the stars dimmed, and the warmth of the place began to wane. Soon, only darkness remained once more. The radiant garden was gone, and Imhotep stood alone in a cold, endless corridor of shadow. But now his steps were lighter, his heart steadier. The pharaohs had walked with him, their fire burned in his soul. He lifted the amulet, now blazing like a miniature sun, and whispered, "Then let the serpent come, I carry Egypt with me." And with that, he pressed forward, deeper into the abyss of Duat. Chapter 7. The Temple of Shadows. Imhotep walked forward, guided only by the faint glow of Ra's amulet pressed against his chest. The warmth of the Garden of Stars had vanished. In its place came a chill that seeped into his bones. The air was thick, damp, and heavy, as though the void itself pressed down upon him. Before him, rising from the darkness, a colossal temple took shape. Its pillars were carved not of stone, but of shadow given form, writhing as though alive. Hieroglyphs etched into the walls shifted like serpents, rearranging themselves in patterns that defied logic. A single thought struck him like ice. This is no temple of the gods. This is a sanctuary of the serpent. The whispers of betrayal. As he crossed the threshold, the air filled with whispers. Voices slithered around him, each hissing from unseen throats. Imhotep, builder of tombs, but can you build your own salvation? You carry Pharaoh's burden, yet Pharaoh is dust. Why bleed for kings who cannot rise again? You could wield the scroll and the amulet for yourself. Be more than a servant, be a god. The voices were not random. They were sharp, intimate, cutting straight to the marrow of his doubts. Imhotep tightened his grip on the scroll of Thoth. You are lies, shadows without breath. I will not bend. But deep inside, he felt the sting of truth. He was only a man, flesh, bone, and fear. What if the whispers were right? What if Pharaoh's soul was beyond saving? The council of the damned. From the shadows, figures emerged, cloaked in darkness. Their forms half solid, half smoke, yet their faces as were clear, all too clear. Pharaohs of old, kings who had once ruled but had fallen into disgrace. Betrayers of Maat, tyrants who had defied the gods. Their crowns were broken, their scepters twisted mockeries of power. One stepped forward, a tall figure with a serpent-shaped diadem. His voice dripped like poison. I was once Pharaoh, beloved of the people, but the gods abandoned me, and so I turned to the one who never falters it. Why worship light when shadow endures? Another snarled, his body wrapped in chains of fire. We ruled in blood, and yet still our monuments stand. Can you say the same, little builder? When your bones are dust, who will remember you? Imhotep's stomach churned. These were men whose names he had studied, whose ruins he had restored. Now they stood before him as hollow wraiths, their glory curdled into decay. The trial of temptation, the council of the damned encircled him. One by one, they cast illusions before his eyes. He saw himself seated upon a golden throne, the amulet blazing like a sun upon his chest. Crowds bowed, chanting his name, Imhotep the Eternal, Imhotep the God. He saw the pyramids rebuilt, greater than any before, not for pharaohs, but for him. His name carved into every stone, his memory immortal. He saw Apep himself, massive and coiled, offering him a crown of shadow. Join me, the serpent whispered, and you shall never die. The gods will bow, pharaohs will rot, only you shall reign. Imhotep staggered, clutching his chest. His heart thundered. A part of him wanted it to be remembered forever, to rise above servitude, to be more than dust. But then he remembered the garden of stars, the pharaohs who had blessed him, the vision they had given. Egypt not as stone, nor as kings, but as eternity, as Maat itself. He clenched his fist and shouted into the darkness, "I am not eternal. I am dust, yes but dust, in the shape of Egypt. I am nothing without Maat, without Pharaoh, without the gods. I am a servant, and that is my strength." The wrath of shadows, the illusions shattered. The council shrieked, their forms unraveling into smoke, their eyes burned with hatred. "Then perish as a servant," they roared. The temple shook, the pillars of shadow bent and twisted, forming serpents that lunged at him with snapping jaws. Dark fire surged across the floor, coiling around his feet. Imhotep unrolled the scroll of Thoth. The hieroglyphs blazed, words of power bursting from his lips. A shield of light erupted, pushing back the serpents. Ra's amulet flared, sending beams of sunlight cutting through the darkness. The shadows screamed, writhing as they dissolved under the holy radiance. The temple cracked, fragments of black stone falling away into nothingness. At last, only silence remained, the voice of warning. As the temple crumbled, a final voice echoed deeper, darker, older than all the rest. "Imhotep," it hissed, "you have resisted shadows. But know this, the greatest shadow dwells within yourself. When you face me, it will rise again, and you will break." It was no phantom pharaoh, no wraith of the damned. It was Apep himself, speaking across the veil. Imhotep fell to one knee, trembling, but he did not falter. He pressed a hand against the amulet, whispering, "Ra is with me. Maat is with me. Egypt is with me. I will not break." Then, with one final burst of light, the temple of shadows collapsed into dust, and Imhotep stood once more upon the path of Duat, his heart shaken, yet unbroken. Chapter 8. The River of Fire. The ground beneath Imhotep's feet trembled, and the air grew hotter with each step. Ahead stretched a horizon lit not by sunlight, but by a blazing, shifting glow. A roar like 1,000 furnaces filled his ears, and soon he stood at the edge of a vast, seething current. It was not water that flowed, but fire. The river of fire carved its way across Duat, like a wound, stretching farther than his eyes could see. Waves of flame surged and fell, carrying with them screaming, shade souls of the damned. Their bodies twisted as they were swept away in endless torment. The stench of burning flesh and ash filled the air, choking him. Imhotep covered his mouth, his heart hammering. So this is the fate of those who betrayed Maat, eternal drowning in fire. The guardian at the shore, a shadow loomed from the far bank. At first, Imhotep thought it was a mountain rising from the flames, until it shifted, breathed, and fixed glowing eyes upon him. The beast was colossal, with the body of a crocodile, the mane of a lion, and wings black as obsidian stretched wide across its back. Its mouth gaped, dripping molten fire, and its roar shook the riverbank. Imhotep recognized the guardian from ancient hymns, Emhe, the devourer of millions, a servant of fire who feasted on the guilty. Emhe's voice rolled like thunder. None cross the river of fire without proving their worth. Mortal, why do you trespass upon the passage of the dead? Imhotep knelt low, holding forth the scroll and the amulet. I am Imhotep, servant of Pharaoh, chosen to carry his soul through Duat. By Maat's law, I seek passage. The beast laughed, flames curling from its jaws. Matt's law. The river burns, even truth, priest. Step into it, and you will be ash before you take a breath. The choice of passage. Imhe lowered its head, eyes narrowing. There are 3 ways across. Choose, mortal, and face your trial. The beast's wing stretched, pointing toward the flames. First, walk through the fire itself. Only the pure of heart will survive. Its claws tore at the ground, raking deep scars into the stone. Second, ride upon my back. But beware, if I sense weakness, I will turn and devour you whole. Finally, its tail lashed, striking the riverbank. Third, summon a bridge of words, a path of magic. Yet, if your tongue falters, if your prayer fails, the flames will claim you. Imhotep felt sweat bead across his brow. Each path was death. Walk through fire, ride the monster, trust only words. He closed his eyes, whispering to himself, "What did the pharaohs teach me? What did Thoth entrust me with?" Then he knew. The bridge of words, unrolling the scroll of Thoth. Imhotep raised his voice. The hieroglyphs leaped from the parchment, glowing as though lit by the sun itself. His voice rang out, carrying across the river. O Mat, feather of truth. O Ra, flame of life. O Thoth, keeper of wisdom. By your names, let stone rise from fire. Let truth carve a path where lies cannot tread. The flames writhed, resisting. The shades screamed louder, clawing at his ankles as if to drag him down. But Imhotep did not falter. He recited every word, every syllable, until his throat ached with fire. And then it happened. From the riverbed, slabs of glowing stone surged upward, locking together into a bridge. Each block was carved with symbols of the gods, each blazing brighter than the fire below. The river of fire roared in fury, but the bridge held. The trial of faith. Imhotep placed one foot upon the stone. It burned, searing through his sandals, but he did not cry out. He placed another and another, each step firm, each breath steady. From the flames below, the shades shrieked, "Fall with us. You are no better than we. You too shall burn." They clawed and reached, but the symbols upon the stone flared, casting them back. Still, Imhotep's vision blurred. His body ached. His voice trembled as he whispered the final lines of the prayer. Halfway across, the bridge shuddered. A great wing shadow fell upon Imamhe's sword overhead, circling, testing his resolve. "Impressive, mortal," the beast growled. "But one misstep, one doubt, and you are mine." Imhotep raised his head, eyes blazing. "Then you shall starve, beast, for I will not fall." The crossing complete at last, his feet touched the far bank. The bridge of light dissolved behind him, crashing back into flame. The shades howled in despair as their chance at escape vanished forever. Amhe landed with a thunderous crash, lowering its massive head before him. For the first time, the beast's voice softened, though it was still like rolling fire. "You have crossed with truth, mortal. Few have ever done so. I will not devour you. Go, and remember, even fire bends to the will of Mat." Imhotep bowed low, his chest heaving, his body trembling with exhaustion. He had survived, but deep within, he knew the worst trials still lay ahead. The river of fire burned behind him, but before him stretched the next stage of Duat, a valley of shadows, where silence hung heavier than any flame. And in that silence, Imhotep sensed it, the gaze of Apep, drawing nearer. Chapter 9. The Valley of Silence. The river of fire faded behind him, its roar dimming until it was no more than a memory. Ahead stretched a land so still that it seemed the gods themselves had withdrawn their breath. Imhotep walked forward, and the air thickened. Each step echoed in his mind, but no sound touched his ears. His sandals scraped the dust, yet silence devoured the noise before it could be born. It was the Valley of Silence, a place whispered of in temple chants. Here, voices were stolen, prayers vanished. Even the thoughts of the living frayed like papyrus left to rot. Imhotep pressed his hand against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. If sound cannot live here, will truth itself die? The weight of silence, the deeper he went, the heavier the air became. His ears rang with emptiness, as though the world itself pressed against him. His mouth moved, whispering a prayer, but nothing came. Panic clawed at him. If my voice is gone, how can I call to the gods? How can I guide Pharaoh's soul? He unrolled the scroll of Thoth, but the hieroglyphs dimmed, the symbols crumbling into faint shadows. His very tools of faith were withering. Then came the whispers, not of sound, but of thought. Why struggle, mortal? The silence is truth. There is no Ra, no Mat, only nothingness. The words slithered into his mind, cold and sharp. He shook his head violently, clutching the amulet. No, these are lies. Silence is not truth, it is void. But the whispers multiplied, drowning his thoughts. Your gods are illusions, your prayers dust. Pharaoh will vanish into the dark, and so will you. Imhotep stumbled, clutching his skull. His knees hit the earth, his strength waning. The test of will through the crushing silence, an image formed. A throne of black stone rising from the valley floor. Upon it sat a figure cloaked in shadow, its face hidden, its presence bled despair. The figure lifted a hand, and though no sound escaped, Imhotep felt its command pierce his mind. Bow, abandon Mat, join the silence. Imhotep trembled. For a moment, his body longed to sink into the dust, to surrender. What was one priest against the void of eternity? But then he remembered the Pharaoh, his master, resting in the tomb. The people of Kemet, looking to the pyramids as eternal beacons. The promise of the gods that death was not the end, but a path. Imhotep pressed the amulet of Mat to his forehead. He closed his eyes, refusing to see the shadows thrown. If I cannot speak aloud, he thought, then I will let my soul speak. Truth does not need a voice. Truth is eternal. The silent prayer, he forced his mind into clarity, shaping the prayer not with his tongue, but with his heart. O Ma'at, feather that balances the scales. O Ra, light that breaks the void. O Osiris, Lord of the afterlife. Hear me, not with ears, but with eternity. Truth needs no sound. Truth is within. For an instant, the silence thickened, as though enraged. The shadow figure rose, stretching into a colossal form, hands reaching to smother him. But from Imhotep's chest, a faint glow burst forth. The amulet of Mat blazed with golden light, not heard but felt. The whispers shrieked and vanished, breaking the valley. The shadow throne cracked, splintering into dust. The valley trembled, and though still silent, Imhotep could sense the illusion fading. The hieroglyphs upon the scroll reignited, glowing once more. His thoughts cleared, the weight lifted. At last, he stood, his breath steady. The valley was still silent, but it no longer crushed him. For silence was not emptiness, it was a canvas upon which truth could endure. He walked on, and as he did, faint outlines began to glow on the valley floor, a path of starlight leading him onward. At its end rose gates of black stone, carved with serpents, twisting upon each other. And behind those gates, Imhotep felt Aten ancient hunger, coiled and waiting. Apep, the serpent of chaos, was near. Chapter 1. Oh, the serpent of chaos. The starlit path ended at a vast black gate, towering higher than the pylons of Karnak. Serpents writhed across its stone surface, their eyes inlaid with obsidian, their fangs dripping with carved venom. No torch burned here, no wind stirred. It was as though creation itself had halted. Imhotep's hand trembled upon the amulet. Beyond this gate lay the ancient enemy of the gods, Apeptha, eternal serpent, the devourer of the sun. He whispered in his heart, for no sound could pass his lips here. Ra, Lord of light, stand with me. The gate shuddered, and slowly it opened. The abyss uncoils darkness, poured forth, thicker than any night. It slithered across the ground like oil, blotting out the starlight path. Then he saw it, the body of Apep, stretched beyond sight, scales like shards of night sky, glistening with venom. Its head rose, larger than a temple, eyes burning with a lightless fire. When it opened its jaws, Imhotep felt not sound, but the pull of the void itself, as though his soul might be swallowed whole. The serpent coiled around him, its vast form circling, cutting him off from escape. The air reeked of decay and broken stars. A voice invaded his mind, deep and endless. Little priest, you walk the path of Pharaoh, yet all paths end in my coils. Ra cannot save you, the dead belong to me. Imhotep gripped the scroll of Thoth tighter, though his hands shook. If Pharaoh's soul falls to this beast, then Mat itself will fail. I must endure. The first strike, the serpent lunged, its fangs crashing into the earth where he had stood. The ground split open, spraying shards of stone like spears. Imhotep rolled aside, the scroll clutched to his chest. He raised the amulet high. Golden light burst forth, forming a barrier as the serpent struck again. Fangs slammed into the shield of light, sparks exploding, thunder shaking the abyss. Apep recoiled, its laughter crawling into his skull. You wield light, but light dies. I have slain Ra 1,000 times, and I shall do so again. Imhotep's breath came ragged. He knew the serpent spoke truth. In the underworld, Ra faced Apep each night. Only at dawn did the sun rise victorious. But now it was Imhotep who stood in Ra's place. The scroll's power. He unrolled the scroll of Thoth. The hieroglyphs shimmered, blazing brighter with each word he traced. He began to chant not with his mouth, but with his soul. By Mat, the eternal balance. By Ra, the light unending. I banish chaos to the void and carve the path of truth. The words struck like spears of sunlight. They wrapped around the serpent's coils, searing its scales. Apep shrieked a sound that tore through thought itself. The beast thrashed, its tail smashing mountains of stone, sending tremors across the abyss. But still, it coiled tighter, pressing against him. Imhotep staggered, blood running from his nose. The scroll's power was vast, but his mortal body was frail. Temptation of chaos. The serpent's voice softened, insidious. Why struggle, mortal? Pharaoh will be forgotten. Your gods will fall silent, but you could endure. Serve me, and I shall grant you eternity in shadow. No death, no judgment, only freedom. Imhotep faltered. His arms trembled, the amulet flickering. For a moment, the thought gnawed at him. No pain, no fear of failure, only endless stillness. But then he remembered the faces of the people of Kemet, who built pyramids not for despair, but for hope. He remembered Pharaoh, believing that his soul would rise to the stars. He pressed the scroll to his heart. I choose Mat. Even in death, truth must shine. The strike of Mot, the amulet flared, brighter than ever before. Light burst from within him, lancing into the scroll. Hieroglyphs lifted from the papyrus, swirling around him like wings of flame. Apep hissed, recoiling. Imhotep raised the scroll high. With a final cry from the depths of his spirit, he unleashed the spell. Be bound, serpent of chaos. Return to the shadows until Ra's fire burns anew. The light surged outward, striking the serpent's chest. For an instant, the abyss blazed like dawn. Apep shrieked, thrashing in agony, its massive body cracking with fissures of light. With a roar that shook eternity, the serpent shattered its vast form, dissolving into streams of smoke, scattering into the darkness. Aftermath silence fell once more. But this silence was not heavy, nor crushing it, was pure, as though cleansed. Imhotep collapsed to his knees, gasping. The scroll dimmed, returning to fragile papyrus. The amulet glowed faintly, warm against his chest. The ground before him shifted, and from the broken abyss rose a staircase of light, leading upward toward a distant globe, to promise of dawn. He had defeated Apep, but the journey was not yet done. Pharaoh's soul awaited the judgment of the scales, and Imhotep knew the greatest trial still lay ahead. Chapter 11. The Scales of Judgment. The staircase of light carried Imhotep upward, each step a trial of will. Behind him lay the abyss where Apep had fallen, but its echoes still clung to his mind like shadows. Ahead, the glow of dawn widened, unveiling a vast hall that shimmered with eternal stillness. It was the Hall of Mat. Columns carved of alabaster rose, higher than pyramids, their tops lost in endless light. Between them floated stars, as though the heavens themselves bent down to watch. At the center stood a colossal scale, its beams glowing with gold fire, its pans wide as chariots. One pan held a single feather, pure, white, and weightless. The feather of Mat. Before the scale stood a dais, and upon it a throne of black stone. Resting there was the judge of the dead Osiris, lord of the underworld. His skin gleamed green as reborn earth, his crown tall and regal, his crook and flail resting across his chest. To either side, rows of gods watched silently. Thoth, ibisetted, scroll in hand. Anubis, jackal-eyed, guardian of the scales. Horus, falcon gaze, unyielding. Imhotep knelt, his voice breaking. Great ones, I come bearing Pharaoh's soul for judgment. His Ka has traveled the trials, and by Mat-'s light, I beg you grant him eternity. Pharaoh appears, the hall darkened, and a figure stepped forth from the shadows. It was Pharaoh, but no longer adorned in gold or linen. He stood as a naked soul, stripped of crown and flesh, only his essence remaining. His face was both proud and fearful, for here no mortal mask could hide the truth. Pharaoh's eyes met Imhotep's. You have carried me this far, faithful servant. But now, my fate rests not in your hands, but in mine. Imhotep bowed low, heart trembling. He knew it was true. The scroll of Thoth had brought them here, but no magic could tip the scales. The weighing begins. Anubis approached, silent as shadow. He gestured, and Pharaoh stepped forward. From his chest, the god drew forth a glowing heart, the IB, the seat of truth. It pulsed with crimson light, heavy with the weight of a lifetime. Anubis placed it upon one pan of the scale. The other pan already bore the feather of Mat, gleaming with purity. The scale shivered, beginning to tilt. Imhotep held his breath. The hall was utterly still. Even the gods did not speak. The confession of the soul, Pharaoh lifted his voice, echoing like temple chants. I have not committed falsehood. I have not robbed the poor. I have not murdered unjustly. I have not blasphemed against the gods. I have honored Mat and sought balance in all. Each word struck the air as heavy as stone, but as he spoke, the heart pulsed brighter, lighter. The scale shifted, wavering closer to balance. Yet from the shadows beyond the dais, a growl rumbled. The devourer awaits there, chained by cosmic bindings, crouched a monstrous beastamit, the devourer of souls. Crocodile head, lion's mane, hippopotamus body, its jaws gnashed hungrily as the scale wavered. If Pharaoh's heart proved heavier than the feather, it would be Amit's feast. His soul would vanish forever, denied both rebirth and memory. The beast's eyes glowed, drool dripping from its fangs, as if it already tasted the heart. Imhotep's fists clenched. No, I have come too far to see all lost now. The last trial of truth, the scale tilted dangerously. Pharaoh's heart weighed down, pressing low. The feather trembled in the higher pan. Whispers filled the holdouts, fears, fragments of Pharaoh's sins, broken oaths, forgotten prayers, battles fought for pride. They crawled like shadows, seeking to drag the heart deeper. Osiris raised a hand. Speak, Pharaoh. Lay bare what you hide. Only truth may balance the scales. Pharaoh bowed his head. Tears of light spilled from his eyes. I was not without flaw. I knew pride. I sought glory greater than my ancestors. I punished too harshly those who failed me. Yet, all I did for Kemet, for the Nile, for the gods who gave me breath. If I have faltered, let it be weighed with my devotion. His voice broke into silence. The scale quivered. The balance held slowly, agonizingly. The pan with Pharaoh's heart began to rise. The feather settled downward until both were level, glowing equally with golden fire. The hall erupted in radiance. Thoth inscribed the judgment upon his scroll. Anubis nodded once, solemn. Osiris's voice rang like thunder, made gentle. Pharaoh, your heart is true, not perfect, but balanced. You have upheld Mat. Thus, you are granted eternity among the stars. Pharaoh lifted his head, his soul shining brighter than before. Relief and triumph mingled in his gaze. Amit howled in fury, chains dragging it back into shadow, denied its feast. Imhotep's relief. Imhotep collapsed in tears, whispering thanks to Mat, to Ra, to all the gods who had witnessed. His body trembled, worn thin from battles of both flesh and spirit. But his heart overflowed with joy. Pharaoh turned to him, radiant. Imhotep, without you, my soul would have been lost. Your devotion has carved my path. When men speak of me in ages to come, they will speak also of you. The servant bowed low, unable to speak, his throat tight with emotion. The path opens. Osiris raised his hand. The hall's far walls split open, revealing a sky filled with constellations. Stars glowed brighter than torches. A river of light flowing upward, the Milky Way, the path of souls. Go, Osiris commanded. Pharaoh shall ascend, reborn as one of the imperishable stars. His name shall endure in eternity. Pharaoh stepped onto the path, his figure shining as he walked among the stars. Imhotep watched, awe in his heart, knowing this was the destiny he had fought for. But as the light carried Pharaoh away, Imhotep felt a pull at his own soul. The gods had not yet spoken of his fate, and he knew the final judgment was coming. Chapter 12. The Eternal Ascent. The Hall of Mat was once again quiet. Pharaoh's soul had passed into the river of stars, his light joining the constellations that would guide the living for all eternity. Yet Imhotep remained kneeling, his heart pounding like a drum in an empty temple. The gods had not dismissed him. He lifted his gaze slowly and found that the divine eyes were still upon him. Thoth's quill scratched silently upon the scroll of judgment. Anubis's jackal eyes glowed faintly. Osiris leaned upon his crook, his expression unreadable. A shiver passed through Imhotep's body. Why do they linger? Pharaoh's soul has been judged. My task is complete, is it not? The question of the gods at last. Osiris's voice rolled across the hall, deeper than the Nile's flood. Imhotep, son of Kemet, you have guided Pharaoh with loyalty and courage, but the path of the dead judges all who walk it. Now your heart too must be weighed, for no soul who has entered the Duat leaves without trial. Imhotep's blood turned cold. His heart felt heavy in his chest, as though it already lay upon the scale. I am no king, he whispered. I am but a servant. Anubis stepped forward, gaze piercing. Mat does not weigh crowns or thrones. She weighs truth. Whether king or slave, scribe or priest, all must stand equal before her feather. The weighing of Imhotep's heart, Imhotep staggered to his feet. He felt the god's power close around him, stripping away flesh and bone until only his essence remained. His Ka, fragile and trembling, stood naked before eternity. Anubis reached into his chest and drew forth the glowing heart. It beat weakly, like a lamp about to gutter out. The god placed it upon the scale, opposite the feather of Mat. The beam trembled. The heart sagged downward. Imhotep fell to his knees, terror searing his soul. Have I failed? Have my flaws outweighed my faith? The truth of a mortal soul, memories washed over him, pride in his knowledge, envy of priests who mocked him, anger at those who questioned his devotion. He had felt fear in the face of Apep, despair in the endless trials. He had doubted the gods themselves. The whispers of his sins filled the hall, dark and heavy. The scale tilted further. Amit's growl rumbled once more from the shadows, chains straining. Imhotep wept. I am not pure, he confessed. I am no god, no flawless servant. I am only a man. I faltered, I doubted, I feared. Yet through it all, I clung to duty, not for myself, but for Pharaoh, for Kemet, for Mat. If my heart is heavy, let it be with love for the land I served. The feathers answer the scale quivered. The heart began to glow brighter, each beat casting away the shadowed whispers. Slowly, the pan rose, until heart and feather balanced as one. The hall blazed with golden light. Osiris rose from his throne, his voice like dawn breaking across the Nile. Imhotep, your heart is true. You are not without flaw, but you sought balance. You served with devotion greater than your fear. Thus, you too shall ascend, not as Pharaoh, but as one whose name shall endure in wisdom and remembrance. The reward of eternity, Thoth, inscribed Imhotep's judgment. Anubis bowed his jackal head in respect. Horus spread his wings, and a wind of stars lifted Imhotep from the ground. He turned once more toward Osiris, his tears shimmering like jewels. Great ones, I am unworthy of such honor. Osiris shook his head. Mortals are never perfect, Imhotep, but it is not perfection we demand, it is truth. The ascent of the scribe, the stars beyond the hall opened, the Milky Way spilling downward like a silver ladder. Imhotep stepped forward, heart light and free. He felt no chains of flesh, no weight of mortality. Ahead, he saw Pharaoh's radiance waiting among the constellations, hand raised in welcome. Beyond him, countless souls glittered, ancestors, kings, and forgotten builders of pyramids, all shining as eternal lights. Imhotep took his place among them, his spirit blazing like a torch newly kindled. His name would not vanish. His story would be carved upon the memory of gods and men alike. Epilogue: the eternal legacy in the world of the living. The pyramids still stood. Beneath their shadow, priests recited hymns from the Book of the Dead, guiding new souls across the Duat. When they spoke of Pharaoh's safe passage, they also whispered the name of Imhotep the scribe, who braved gods and demons, who carried his king into eternity. And on clear nights, when the Nile reflected the heavens, mortals would look upward and point to a bright star among the constellations. They would say, "There shines Imhotep, the faithful servant, whose heart proved true." Thus ended the pyramid path of the pharaoh, not with a crown alone, but with the remembrance of a servant whose devotion lit the way to eternity.